Well, good morning and welcome to today's webinar. This is Streamlining Church-Wide Communication with Church360 Unite. My name is Peter Frank and I'll be leading the presentation today. I'm the Senior Manager at Concordia Technology Solutions. I've been with our team for a little over 5 years, going on 6 this summer. I've been with our organization here for almost 11 years, or it'll be 11 years this summer too. But my contact information is on the screen. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time. I always love hearing from customers and people in the field. It helps me get a better understanding of how we can develop tools to serve in the church or to help you serve in the church. So email is the best way to get a hold of me. My phone number is on the screen too. Usually I'm not in my office like I am today. I'm running around to meetings, but today you get my undivided attention. A few housekeeping items before we begin. First off, I'm planning 50 minutes for this presentation. Now there's more than enough we can cover in 50 minutes. I could talk about this all day, and I have before during some of our different training webinars. So we'll keep it as short as we can while still covering a ton of material. If we have time at the end, I have set aside 10 minutes for questions. If we have questions, I should say, we'll set aside that time. Otherwise, I'll keep going with the presentation until we reach the hour. So I don't plan on keeping you past the hour. I want to be respectful of your time. So that 10 minutes at the end will be reserved for question and answers if there are questions there. So I ask that you ask questions throughout. As things come up, just go ahead and put them in the chat. I've got that showing up here on my screen. I'll check over there a few times during the presentation and make sure that that I'm not missing anything as I'm going. Otherwise, we'll save the questions for the end. Now, this will be recorded and shared on our YouTube channel and our resource center after the fact. If you're watching one of the recordings, thank you for joining us afterwards. I'm sorry you couldn't be here live, but really the only thing you're missing by watching a recording is just that live Q&A. So I'm glad you're here, and thank you to those who are attending live right now. All right, a little bit about ourselves before I get too far into the product. So Concordia Technology Solutions is the church administration division of Concordia Publishing House. We've been developing software since 1984, and Church360 Unite is one of the newest software that we've released. So that's what we'll be talking about today. We'll be using this platform to roll out a church-wide communication strategy. We'll be focusing on Lent, as that's rather timely. It's hard to believe Lent is almost here. So Church360 Unite is part of the Church360 suite, which also includes Church360 members and Church360 Ledger. Now, yesterday I presented using Church360 members. Tomorrow I'm presenting on Ledger, so today is right in the middle with Unite. They all work together, but they can be used independently as well. And so you'll see that I'll talk about members a little bit today, but for the most part, Unite is as it is, and you'll be able to use it to the full extent that we're showing today. All right, a little bit about Unite. First off, it's a church website builder. I'm assuming most of you already know that. That's why you're here. And we call it Unite because it's more than just websites. So website is certainly part of that, but it also is your blog, your member hub, your file sharing tool, your calendar, your master church calendar, your mass email tool. And so we call it Unite because it takes all of these different communication tools and puts them in one place for you, making it easy and consistent to use that and to convey messages to your congregation. So Church360 Unite is mobile accessible. All of our themes, which we'll show you a few of them, are responsive, meaning they work as well on the phone as they do on a desktop computer. We do sync with different church management software. That's what CHMS stands for. We sync with Church360 members, of course, and also shepherd staff. And so as I talk about some of those syncs as we go through here, just know that we do associate with those two church management software. They're our own, and so we've built that integration. Things like daily backups, making sure that we are providing the security that you need, all that stuff to get it off your mind. You don't have to worry about that. We take care of that. And then we provide support and training as well. Things like this webinar today that give you helpful tips on how to use Unite, and also think maybe one step away from Unite as you think about communication strategy. So we've got plenty of these available. You can find more on our website. Some of them aren't fully planned out yet, but we've got dates and times set aside. All right, let's dig into my assumptions about you. First off, I'm assuming you're familiar with church websites. If this is your first time ever even thinking about a church website, I might be going a little bit too far ahead for you. So just a fair warning, I'm assuming you're at least familiar with it. I'm assuming you're new to Church360 Unite. If you've been using Church360 Unite for several years, you probably aren't going to get as much out of this as somebody who has just started using it. But there's always helpful things along the way that I'll be pointing out. And I'm also assuming you're extremely busy. So if this is not valuable, if you have more important things to do with your time, feel free to step away. I'll be sending you the recording. This is meant to be helpful to you, and so don't feel obligated to stick around if it's not helpful. But that's always that bar I set, is that I want to make sure that there's enough valuable information for you that I'm not wasting your time. So that's my goal for today. So those are my assumptions about you, but it would help if I knew a little bit more about you specifically. So I'm going to launch a couple polls here. If you don't mind answering these questions, it'll just help me kind of shape the presentation today a little bit more towards what's most valuable to you. So the first one is about the role in the church, your primary role. So I know we wear many hats in the congregation. Just let me know which one you would consider to be your primary role, and that would be very helpful to me. So let's see. All right, we're starting to get some votes in. Looks like we've got a little bit of variety, mostly on the administrator side. We have a couple tech coordinators, and then some on the other category. So, and it looks like we had at least one pastor here, so very good. All right. Well, thank you very much for letting me know about that. I'm going to move on to the next one. Are you currently using Church360 Unite in the congregation? So I'll launch that as well. That helps me to understand if I'm talking to current users or potential users. You know, the content's not going to change too much, but I may go into a little bit more detail depending on where you're at. So it looks like we're about 50-50, maybe a little bit more towards the non-user side. So that's good. That'll help me as I go. Okay, very good. And then the last question that I have for those of you who are using it, how advanced are you with Church360 Unite? What would you consider your skill level to be? Expert, advanced, intermediate, novice, newbie? This will tell me kind of what pace to go for those of you who are already using it. So it looks like we've got mostly newbies here and a few intermediates, so very good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that off. That helps. Thank you very much for answering those questions. All right, let's get into the outline for today. All right, first off, we are going to go through an overview of Church360 Unite. And I'm not going to spend too long on this, but I want to at least get the lay of the land for you so that you know what we're looking at here. Oops. Then we're going to talk about some key communication tactics. And this is really where the bulk of the presentation will be. You'll see more of Unite as we go through. We've got specific tasks that we're going to do as we go through it. And then finally, we'll take time for question and answers, like I mentioned before. So the key communication tactics that we'll be looking at, and in the order in which we'll be looking at them, first, creating just a basic page. You know, this is the root of any website, our pages, and that's the easiest thing to do in Unite, and really where you should start. So we're going to start off by creating a page detailing the Lenten services that are being offered at our fictional congregation that we'll look at today. Then we're going to create a resource hub. And so this is for congregations that have either multiple people on staff or volunteers who assist. Unless you're completely a one-man show, which I know many pastors may feel like that in small congregations, but in most congregations, there's a community of people who help support this. And so we'll create a resource hub for everybody who could participate, regardless of whether they're on the staff or a volunteer. It's also for members to get additional information. So we'll look at that. I'll show how to invite users and get people into that resource hub. We'll look at setting up events, engaging site visitors. How do you direct people to these different resources? Creating a blog. Now, this blog has a certain kind of connotation that goes with it. It's going to be a feed, which is syndicated content. So we'll get into that in more detail. I put blog here because I think everybody has at least a little bit of idea of what a blog is. Finally, we'll show the mass emailing tools and how to use that, what that means in Unite, how people can access that. So we'll go into that. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to switch screens here. Now, this does not look fantastic right now, and it's going to take some time to make it look a little bit better, but this is a default theme that I put in here. And the reason I say it doesn't look fantastic is, for me, the color scheme kind of contradicts, but we're going to replace that banner on the homepage anyways. So this is Light of Christ Lutheran Church. This is our fictional congregation that we're going to be using today for demonstration purposes only. Any of the information you see in here is not real. Any names that we use will not be real names unless we're using my own, which I may put me in there. But otherwise, you can rest assured that we're not putting anybody's information on here. So like I mentioned before, Church360 Unite is a website builder, but it's different than what you might think in terms of code and HTML and CSS and all that programming stuff that many websites are, or all websites are built off of, but many websites that are a little bit more detailed have you dig into that. This is much more of a what you see is what you get experience. So when you log in as the administrator, this is what your experience is. You've got your website on the bottom part, and then at the very top, there's what we call the administrative toolbar. So we've got pages, posts, activities, users, themes, settings. I realize it's a little small, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here. And you can do that on your site as well. In fact, all of your users can zoom in just by hitting Control and zooming. So if some things look a little bit too big, I think for your view, I've got my audience view up there. It looks just fine. All right, so every theme is a little bit different, and that's where we're going to start here. So this is one theme. We call it our Wonderful Cross theme. All right, so that's here. These are the available themes up at the top. They all have unique names. When you click on the theme, what you'll be able to see below that will be presets. And these are preset styles, so it's all still the same theme, but there's different colors and other things. You can see there's images in there. That's just an example to show how how the content that you put in might look in the theme. So we're using the Wonderful Cross theme today, and I picked this one over here. Now, if you click and hold on it, it'll pop up a larger view so you can see what it looks like. So one of my favorite ones is this one here, which is a beautiful one that's got that bright image with the crucifix in the background. One that I also like, but is far more simple, is this one here. All of these can be changed. So if, for example, we want to go with this one, very basic, very good for Lent and Easter, we'll go ahead and apply that. Now, as soon as I apply it, I get the message saying my theme has been changed. And when I go back to my site, this is what it looks like. So you can see how quickly it is to adjust the look and feel of your site. Now, we talked about how these are presets, that these have predetermined styles with it. You can go a step further and pick one of the predetermined styles, but then customize it to meet your needs. Now, depending on which theme, you'll have different customization options. So you can see here, like the background, banner, header colors, link colors, all of that could be changed. Footer colors, maybe we want to make that more of a deep purple for Lent. There we go. We'll hit the Save Changes. And you can go and see that. So plenty of options for modifying your theme. There's styles, which we'll talk about later on. This is font and copy styles. So we'll look at that in a little while. You can also do advanced code embedding. And so I'm trying to remember what I put. This is from last time. I have a variety of different kind of code things that you can that you might plug in here. In this case, looks like it was a video wrapper for something I was testing out, and my button. So many website tools that are out there will give you code to put on your site, and you may not know what that is if you're not a web programmer, and that's just fine. They make it pretty easy, and that's the thing with Unite, is that while we try to unite all things, we can't be all things in web design because it's so vast, and there's lots of great tools out there. So we give you this option to enter custom headers and custom scripts, and one goes at the top of the page in the code, one goes at the bottom, and our support team is happy to help you out with that as well if you've got a tool that you want to embed. But we put this in here so that even though you might deal with some code, if you want. You don't have to, certainly, but if there's something you want to add to your site, you can do it here without modifying the theme code, and that's what's here under Edit. So if you are a web programmer, if you know what you're doing, you can go in here and clone a theme and update all of the root files. So you could drastically change the look and feel of your site if you wanted to. But we kind of lock that down so you can't accidentally do that. If you're not familiar with that, you have to be very intentional about going and doing that, and then you can always get back to where you were. So that's why this is white right now until you clone the theme, and then we can get into more details. But that's not the topic of discussion today. I just wanted to show you that. Just another thing in the quick overview of Unite, you've got the settings tab here, which allows you to do basic things like add church name. Our themes allow you to put this contact information in there and show it on the footer, so you don't have to add that to every page. You can add calendars. You can sync with your Google Calendar or with your Church360 members calendar. We'll look at that a little while later. You can set up your domain, or we can work with you on that. So things like mychurch.com rather than mychurch.360unite.com. A couple of our plans include that. It's also really easy to do that on your own. You can integrate with Google Analytics, which is a free tool provided by Google that's super powerful. We make that easy to turn that on. And then lastly, if you're integrating with Shepherd Staff, there's a few additional steps with that. We outline that all here. So that's what the settings tab is. We aren't going to get into that too much more. What I really want to get into is our first communication tactic, and that's pages. So let me close out here, and I'll show you where we're at right now. Oops, there we go. So this is our home page. You've got our navigation up at the top. There's a drop-down navigation. There's a number of things in here. Some of it's left over from previous training webinars. And then we've got the main page details below that. Now within this page, if I go over to the far left, there's Edit Page. And that slides in from the left and gives me a number of things like layout. So you see here, I've got this row up at the top and 3 columns below. On the page, now that I'm in an edit mode, you can see that I've got these outlines showing these blocks that I can update. So I could change the way the blocks are set up to give me a little bit more flexibility if I wanted to do a 2-column page or a split page, or just one set amount of content in there, just one big block. I could do that. So that's what those are. I've got the status for published or draft if I want to turn this off if I'm working on the page. Now be careful as you're doing that. You certainly don't want to turn your home page to a draft, because then it'll go to the next page, which is probably not the best welcoming experience for visitors. But you've got things like the URL, page title, meta description. All of that helps improve what you look like when people search in search engines like Google. So it doesn't necessarily drive your page to the top, but it gives you a better experience for that user. So you might want to say, rather than home, Light of Christ Lutheran Church, Bakersville, Missouri. Something like that, so that when it shows up in a search result, it doesn't just say home, but it has something a little bit more welcoming. So, and of course the meta description, this is probably the worst possible meta description you could put in. This is the home page for Light of Christ in Bakersville. So I would change that to something like, welcome to our church. We'd love to have you join us on Sunday morning, or something along those lines. I'm not a copywriter, but I know that's better than this is the home page. So then I'll go ahead and save that. And so that's how easy it is to make changes. You just go into the edit mode, change these, and save. The copy on the page is very similar to that. So you can see here, like if we click within there, it's almost like writing an email. You've got your what we call WYSIWYG editor. What you see is what you get up here, where you can copy and paste things. You can add anchors or links or pictures or audio or video, tables, even code. You've got your bold, italics, all of that stuff. We'll look at that in a few minutes when we create our page, but it's meant to be so simple that you can just start putting your information like if you're in an email. All right, so that's the quick overview of pages. Let's go ahead and add a page. So I'm going to go up to the top left and click Pages. And this gives me a 2-column view. So the left side is my active menu items, and my right side is my available menu items. Now, the page and whether or not it's turned on or publicly or in draft mode or published, those are all independent on the navigation. That's what the columns are. On the left hand is just what shows in the navigation, and the right hand are anything that's not in the navigation. So active menu items, you see you've got home and about us and all of that as you go through. So when I close out of here, oh, and it looks like my title, there we go. Yeah, I have my page title up there at the top, so you can see that. Light of Christ Lutheran Church, Bakersville, Missouri. Then I've got my About Us, my news, Bible studies, Sunday school. All of that those are categories in the pages underneath that. So you see here About Us, news, Sunday school, and then the last one on there. Oh, Sunday school was the last one on there. About Us, news, Bible studies. I missed that. There's some pages that could be on there that are not categories. So like it's hard to see, I'm sure. These are more folders. If I wanted to move announcements into the root level and save that, that's not a category. That page will show up right there, and I just click announcements. So one thing you want to be careful of as you're doing this is that you look at how much you put in there. And so maybe your homepage doesn't have all of that in there like I put. The other thing is depending on your theme, like this theme on all the sub pages, the menu gets hidden. It almost looks more like a mobile device. And so if I shrink it down here, you can see that looks like a mobile device there. So that's the responsive theme, what it looks like on a phone. All right, so that's what navigation is. Let's go ahead and create a page. Up in the top right, you can either create a category or a page. And when you create a page, you have page templates. So there's 3 types of pages you can have: a regular page, a feed, or a group. We're going to look at all 3 of those today. First one is a regular page, and I'm going to type in Lent 2018. And so after I save my name, it gives me the little short URL. It says Lent-2018. I'm going to move that down under news. And it says right there, I've got a draft. So I can either publish that right now. It says also members only, so I can make that public as well. So you've got those 2 different levels of visibility there. So it's either draft or publish, meaning that if it's draft, only those who can edit the site can see it. And then you have members or public, which means that if it's public, anybody can see it as long as it's published. If it's members only, then only people who log into the site can see it. And we'll talk about that in a little while, about how to invite your members to log into your site. What that allows you to do, though, is to be very specific and say, okay, if this information is only relevant to my members, I don't need to put it on my public site, because for one, it might clutter it up. 2, there might be sensitive information that's there. And 3, it allows you to really target your audience in the messaging. So you can make sure that if you're going with Lent 2018, it's for the general public, and you can talk in that way. Where if you are doing like planning for Lent, you can make that just be members and be very casual in your talk and in your conversation. Put up things like phone numbers of individuals, because only members of your church community will see that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and save those changes, and then I'm going to click on Lent. Oops, looks like I jumped a gun on that. All right, there's Lent 2018. So you'll notice that my view changes. My header image is not up there anymore. It gives me more content, and part of that's so that you're not always having to scroll through that image when you're on the phone. We'll go to Edit Page, and this now gives me my different options for the page layouts. So I'm going to start up with this one here, which is something at the top, which is the header 1, and then kind of a split screen, but more copy on the left, or more space on the left. And I have already created copy. And when I say I have, I mean our copywriters here who are advertising our Lent program, to give me some placeholder text. So I just paste that in. It starts to format it. I had it in Word before, so you can see what it looks like there. I just copied and pasted it from one of my other screens. So we're going to talk about Return from Exile, a Lenten Journey. And I'm going to cut that from here and put that as my title. Now my page title is still Lent 2018, and I can do my meta description. This Lenten season, join us for a journey. I'll put that over there. All right, so this is not actually just a header box. It's for any text, so I could put more in there if I wanted. But I'm going to stick with it being a header, and I'm going to select that and choose my style of heading 1. Now, that from a kind of desktop publishing perspective makes a lot of sense. You'll have these different weights given. So header 1 is this big, header 2 is a little bit smaller. From a search engine optimization standpoint, it's also important to have one header 1 and one header 2, and then make sure all the styles match so that the search engines, as they're reading your site, know what is the highest priority. Whoops. All right, so we'll go here, and then looks like that's accepting that style. So I'm going to change that and put that just under normal style. Oops. Why is that doing that? Sometimes when you paste things in, the styles get accepted from other places. So, oops. So my styles from that header 1 are coming in. Let's go ahead and see. Why is that doing that? Best laid plans doesn't notice. So I'll adjust the code real quickly. All right, so now I've got my paragraph copy. I'm going to switch this to a header 2, make that a little bit smaller. And then I have here all of my service times, and I'm going to change that to be a bulleted list. And then what I want to do is to say, visit our Lent Resource Center. And we'll come back and style that separately. So let's go ahead and save all of this. We'll make that into a link as well. What I want to show next is our styles. So under themes and styles, this is where we have that different copy. So you see the heading 1, heading 2. The CTA style is what I want to work with today, the call to action style. Now I can name that whatever I want. So if I want to do, highlighted link as my style, I could do that as well. But it lets me choose a number of different things, including, how much padding there is, how much margin there is on each side. So if I want to cut down and make that a little bit less, oops. So we'll do 2 here and 2 here. And I may want to change that to that dark purple color. And I could also type in a hex code as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead. I got my microphone here and save that. And there's my highlighted link. So you can do as many styles as you want. I'm going to close out of that. I'm going to go back here to edit page. And I'm going to change my style to highlighted link. And maybe I'll make that centered. So you can have this almost button-looking link, and we'll link that up. I don't have a page to link it to. We'll come back and do that. So we've got that there. The other thing I might want to do to make this look a little bit better is add a picture. So I'll go up here, put it up at the top, and do add picture. And I'll upload one from my desktop. There we go. This is our Lent theme this year. And you'll notice that it's a little skewed. It's a very large picture. And I might not, since I'm going to recycle this a number of times just for demonstration purposes, I didn't resize it. You may want to resize it outside of your website before, but to resize it in your website, you just double click on it and go to Advanced, that tab up there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the height and say, just make the width 100%. Oops, the height wants to come back. There we go. Just delete it. Width 100% and click OK. And now that'll change it appropriately. The other thing that I could do over here is I could add different images if I want. I'm just going to go ahead and put that same image right there just to show you how that works. So if I go 100% and erase the height, we could have that there. So that's probably not a good image, but I want to show you just how to get that look and feel in there. You could also go in here, copy that, and add multiple ones. So if you had some different things you wanted to feature, you could make a very nice looking page just by having one big image and then almost like, not ads, but quick links over here on the right hand side. So maybe not the most beautiful site in the world. It's a little dark due to the theme, but it shows how easy it is to pull a page together like that. All right, so the next step that we're going to do is create that resource center. We'll come back here later on as well. So we're going to create this resource center, and that will be up in Pages. We'll go to New Page, and we'll say a new group. And I'm going to call that Lent 2018 Resource Center. And I'm not going to put in the navigation. So I'll save my changes and go over to this. Now this page obviously looks a little bit different from the very start. So groups are very unique in that there are a collection of pages within one line item, and they follow the same kind of theme where they have these different types of pages. I often describe them as a site within a site because they allow you to manage it as if it was completely independent of the rest of the site. So I'll show you what I mean in just a moment here. But you can do the same tools like edit page. The difference is that you always have this right-hand column here, depending on the theme. In most of our themes, it's a right-hand column. But I can still modify the content over here, and I can do my different page layouts, however I want to do that. So we're going to leave it just as this single one right now. And I can still add in images. We'll keep that images. One thing I'll point out is that if you have anything on this page, it'll show up here. And if you have things that are available elsewhere, depending on your permissions, you could you'll see it on there. But for right now, we're going to upload that again. Oops, I didn't wait long enough. Actually, I'm not sure why that's not working. Let's try that again. Sometimes when I'm doing the webinar, I get, there we go. I get some problems caused by my streaming. All right, so I'll go back in here, make that 100%. We're going to reuse this image quite a bit. There we go. All right, so you can see it's smaller, but it still looks good. I still have all the other tools where I could paste copy in here. And so I'll just put this exact same stuff in there before, although maybe I'll delete the H1 now since I have an H1 appear under the group name. And I can make the H2. So, oops. Let me put that in there again. Having some problems with my styles today. There we go. So I've got all that in here if I want, but maybe what I want to do is have a separate page that has those service times. So I just copied that. I'm going to save this right now. We'll come back and delete it later on. And then I can go down to my edit this group. And this gives much more of the overarching group settings. So I could do a description in there, but I can also add more pages. Now there's a number of pages that come with it. We've got the home page, which is based on that name. We've got discussion, which is a message board where the group leader, and we'll talk about leaders in a second, but where the group leader or other members of the group can post things, even prayer requests or announcements. You have your own group calendar, where the events of the group are kept separately here. You have your listing of group members. We'll look at that in a moment. And then membership settings, which are for me, and each individual user, how do you want to be notified? So like in that discussion board, you can receive notification when somebody posts an announcement or makes a comment, or you can just turn off all email notifications. So pretty powerful interaction that can be accomplished through groups. But let's say you want to do a page of service times. So if I go to edit this group, I can go here and say service times and add that page there. I'm going to add another one as well. So another example of how you might use this for Lent would be if you are sharing preachers for that very lengthy journey. I know many churches will do kind of a preaching rotation where they'll partner with other churches in the area and say, okay, we'll pick the same theme for Lent, and then we'll each pick a topic to preach on, and then we'll rotate churches. And so you only, as a pastor, you only have to write, one sermon for those 5 midweeks as opposed to 5 of them, and then you can rotate through. And for the congregation, you get a better, or not better, a different experience of having a different preacher every week. So that's one way of doing it. But let's say you wanted to do that. One of the pastors could say, okay, preaching resources. We're going to add that in here, and I'll share my information with the rest of these preachers by putting it there. Now, if it says they're drafts right now because they're just new, I can add them to the navigation over here on the far right just by checking the box. Now, you can have as many pages as you want, but only 3 of them can be put in the navigation, just because this gets really long really quickly. All right, I'm going to save that, update the group, and then we're going to talk about permissions on the pages. So let's go back to edit this group. So group details are visible too. Now, I added a couple pages. I have to update it before they show up there because it doesn't dynamically add all the details until you save it. So I have here all of my group pages. So my home page, my discussion, events, preaching resources, service times, and then my members page and my multiple permission levels. So no one is one permission level. If I don't want to use that tool, if I don't want to use events or discussion, I can just turn that off. Group leaders is another one. So I can say, all right, I'm going to make all of the pastors the group leaders, and only they can see preaching resources. I can say, okay, discussion is only for group members. Events, we'll post that publicly. Service times, that actually could be really public, not just Unite users, but all people. The members should only be the group members. And then you can have here only people who log in can see, maybe that's where you put events, and then the public is service time. You have a lot of flexibility there, and I'm just using one example, but you could think of other groups like Board of Elders or Board of Finance, your preschool class. You could invite parents in there. You can have as many groups as you want, and you can put individuals in charge of the group, and they can manage them themselves without having access to the rest of the website. So the possibilities really are endless. So we'll go over here. You'll see now that I have my preaching resources page that I can go and edit and put content on. Service times. We'll go back here. There we go. So that is service times, and I'll plug that in. So actually, I think, yeah, worship services, and then I'll just do all that. All right. There's that. Let's jump into users, and then we'll move into events as well. So my members page is rather weak right now because I am the only member of my group. I can add more people, not just to my group, but to my Unite account by going up to the top tab and clicking on users. So users are compiled in a number of ways. You could sync them with your church management software like Church360 members. In this case, that's what it is. And that list of potential users will always stay up to date. You could sync it also with Shepherd staff, which is a little bit different of an integration, but the end result is the same. You could add people one at a time, first name, last name, email, or you can import them from a CSV. So if you're using a different database, all you need to do is export those 3 fields, download our template, fill it in, upload it here, and invite everybody. So it's really easy to do. When you're inviting people, all you have to do is click on the name. So Sally Baxter. I'll change her role, and it gives you your different options for roles. So you could say they're just a regular user. They can't edit anything, but they can log in and see the private content. They could be a publisher, which means they can log in and edit the content. This is good for like your secretary, maybe some of your ministry leaders. could be a designer, which is edit content and themes in addition to editing pages. So each one progressed to give more access. So if you have a web designer in your church, but not on your staff, you may not want to give them access to everything, but you want to give them the web design access. So you could do that there. And lastly, administrator, which is manage everything, including users. So with our plans, we do restrict the number of administrators just because that's the most powerful login and could really affect your site. So just keep that in mind, that you don't want too many administrators, but you want at least 2. So we'll just add her as a user right now. We'll click update, and she has been invited. So I can find her by filtering down Baxter, and I can say invited. She was invited about a year ago. That was the first time I invited her, and then I can always resend invitations that way. So, oops. Yep, so we can do that. We can also edit those specific details, including her name right there. All right, so now when I close out of here, we'll go back to members. I can invite anybody who is a user or who has been invited as a user to join my group. So just because people are on the list doesn't mean they can be invited. They have to actually be, can be added to a group. They actually have to be a user to be added to the group. So this is my list of users. So Sally Baxter is on there, and I can just add her, and she automatically becomes a member, or I can invite her and she can choose whether to become a member. I'll just go ahead and add her. So she gets added to the list, and then I could change her to a group leader, which gives her access to editing this group, or I could just leave her as a member and she can view the things that members of the group can view, going back to those permission levels. All right, one other thing with users, every account has a members page, which we've got here. So when you click on members, it gives you a members directory of everybody who is added or has been synced up, not necessarily users, but has been synced. So the Abbott, let's go stick with the Baxters. So although it looks like we had turned off Sally Baxter. Yep, so there's Sally Baxter. You see over on the far left, she's marked as unlisted. Any non-members in your church management software will come across as non-listed, but you can list them here. You can also unlist people who might want to be, or who might be members but not want to be listed. And they have that option to unlist themselves as well. So we'll go ahead and mark her as listed. There, that's changed. Go back here, we'll refresh. And sometimes this goes a little slow when I'm presenting live. Sometimes it goes really slow. Sorry about that. Well, while I wait for that to refresh, I've been having internet issues all day. There we go. If you have any questions as we go, please go ahead and put them in the chat. I've been looking over that just to kind of keep an eye on it. All right, so Sally Baxter is now available in that household, and Sally can go in and update her own information. You can see the groups that she's involved with. All right, so we're going to go back to the groups. I've noticed that I'm going a little long-winded and going too in-depth. So the next thing I want to show is events. And I'm just going to do one event right now. It'll help me demonstrate how to create an event. So the first event that we have is February 14th, our Ash Wednesday service. So we're going to do Ash Wednesday. And then I can add it to a calendar. It defaults to this calendar, but I'm also going to add it as worship. And I'll put that, in the sanctuary. And I accidentally clicked off the date. We'll put it back on the 14th for 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock. And then we'll do that at 8 p.m. And this is just a one-time thing. Now I can add the description. I can invite people to it. Only group members can be invited when you create it from the group. And I can set reminders. And I really want to make sure Sally's there, so I'll send her an email automatically 1 hour ahead. So I'll create that group, and now that shows up on my group calendar in February. It's supposed to. Oh, did I do March? I did do March. Let me switch that back. All right, so I'll go in here to edit. I knew it was a Wednesday, and March and February have the exact same days at the same time. So let me go back to February. Sorry about that. And update event. There we go. That's a little bit better. So you can see who's been invited to the event. And when I click on participants, I can see that I've got no response from Sally yet. Now, the other fun thing is when I go up here to, let's see, About Us calendar, this is the master church calendar, and that's been added to this along with all other events. Now, because I have access to the calendar, I can see that under Lent 2018, but I could always turn that off from my view. Now, that still shows because I also have worship events on there. So if I turned off worship, all of those other ones would disappear. So depending on who the user is, what calendars they have access to, the calendar will be customized just for them, which is a pretty great and relevant experience. All right, so the next thing I want to do, Ash Wednesday. I can go up here and copy the URL. And let me go back to my pages and go to Lent 2018. And I just want to show how when I edit a page, I can go and add a link directly to that service. And hit save. And so that way, on this page where I have my service times, I can create a link and send people there, and they can get more details and sign up. So that's how that starts to tie together. The other thing that I have here is I can add a link to my resource center. And when I click links here, I can go to a page or feed in my site, including groups. So here's my Lent 2018 resource center, and click OK. So I've got a funky color on that I kind of expected. So I could always go and add a different kind of color for the links on there. I won't get into that right now. The other thing, though, that I really want to show with groups, oops. Let's see, I'm going into that whole style. Let me go up above that. You can add a group, what we call widget, which allows you to say, okay, here's my Lent 2018 resource, and I'll create a large widget, and when I put that in there, it creates this dynamic link and shows who the group leader is. If there's a description of the group, it'll put that there. This is great if you want to list like all your Bible study groups or all your classrooms if you have a preschool or an elementary school there. And you can just dynamically keep those up to date on a single page. So real powerful stuff. I'm running short on time already, so I won't get into that. The last two things that I need to show are blogs or feeds and emails. I think that's, let me double check my agenda here that we talked about. We talked about creating a page, creating a resource hub, inviting users, setting up events, engaging site visitors, and that goes back to how you link everything together. So we'll continue to talk about that. Let's go to feeds next. If I go to pages and I go and say create a feed, create page, what I'm going to call this is Lent Faith Stories. And on our CTS blog, Daniel Ross wrote a post about ideas for social media for Lent. And one of those was sharing faith stories. And you can do that on social media, or you could do that on like a blog. So we'll put that over here just under About Us for right now and save that. And then I can go here and go About Us, Lent Faith Stories. So this gives me a very basic page right now. And when I go to edit a page, then I can add a post. And I can do, I'm just going to do Lent Faith Story #1. And I'll put in some copy just so you can see that the experience is very similar to editing a page. But what I can also do is I can schedule this out in advance. So if I wanted to do a faith story every day at 9 o'clock, I could say, okay, this is my faith story. I'm going to do this for the 14th of February at 9 o'clock. And go ahead and create that. And that is scheduled to be posted. You get the little icon there. And I can always add more to it than that, but it gives it this own unique URL. And it's, so you've got posts and then Lent Faith Stories, Lent Faith Story 1. And so it gives you this nice URL that can be picked up and shared elsewhere. And so I could put that and then go back to my news Lent 2018. And maybe one of my faith stories is this image over here. And so I can point to that. Now, the other thing you might want to consider doing is having a section on your resource center that lists all of those out just as links. I won't do that right now because I'm running short on time. But it allows you to tie these different things together. So if you want to direct people to your Lent Resource Center, you can point to all of these individual things. And again, based on the user experience, it could be different depending on who you are. All right, enough of that. I'm getting a little long-winded here. The last thing I want to show is mailing lists, because an important part of any communication strategy is email. Email is still a very effective tool today. So if we go up here to users, we have what we call mailing lists. And mailing lists could be any collection of individuals, groups, or other mailing lists. So if I wanted to say my Lent 2018 mailing list, create that, click on that, I can say, well, let's see, Lent 28 Resource Center, anybody who's part of that group. I could also say, let's see, well, Peter on there. And maybe I want to go to the, all members group or mailing list as well. Each of those icons indicate a different type of mailing list that we have. So groups, people, or mailing lists. And when I click save, I've created that. Now all I have to do is select that group, check it right here, and click email. And what will happen is that my email client, which in my case is Outlook, will open up and give me an email right here with this link or address that's a GUID. It's a generic user ID or general, I forget if it's generic or general, globally unique ID. Maybe that's what it is. Somebody can tell me exactly what GUID stands for. Either way, it's this collection of characters and numbers, and it points it right back to my Unite site. And so when we call this our email relay, because when I send an email from my email client to this address, it comes back to our Unite servers and then is relayed one at a time to every individual email address associated with that collection of lists. So it allows us to do a mass email without having lots of email addresses in the two, which often spam blockers will prevent from going through. So it also allows you to use the comfort of your own email client. And if you wanted to use a different email client, like a MailChimp or something, you have this URL or an email address that will send to everybody. So you could even put this in MailChimp or Constant Contact, whatever you're using. And it ties it right back to this members directory where people have the option to update their own information. So you always have the most up-to-date emails with it. So a lot of information all at once. I do apologize that I ran over time. I've got a few questions in here. Let me wrap up first on the presentation, and then we'll take the questions during the question and answer time. So if you haven't started a free 30-day trial, I would recommend you do that right now. You'll have full access to all the tools. You'll just be limited on storage space and number of administrators. If you are interested in signing up for Church360 Night, we have our annual sale of saving on $199 on the startup fee. That goes through the end of February. And so we'd be happy to talk to you about that in more detail. I'm going to put my contact information on the screen as well as how to reach our software consultants. They can walk through it with you, see if it's a right fit for your church. So their contact info, or for your church, their information is on the screen there. So let me take a look at our questions. The first one from Philip: when you add members who are not familiar with using 360 Night, do you provide any type of communication or instruction about how to log in for the first time? That's a good question. When you are inviting people, and I'll jump back over into that users section. When you are inviting people here and changing the role to a user, they will get an email invitation that gives them directions on how to set up. Now, what we recommend doing, and we even have a video that we share on our YouTube channel that you could use, but we recommend explaining to your church how you plan to use it. And the reason for that is there's so many different use cases for Unite through the directory and through groups and private pages and all of that, that it's hard for us to tell a member how to use the website because it's really customized to your church. So you may say, we want everybody to log into our website and join their Bible study group. That would be different than saying log into the website and see the member directory. So we recommend you provide the context with it, but in terms of setting up the account, the instructions are included in the email, and it's pretty straightforward. So they will get an email notification, they click on it, they can change what email they use at that point for their user, and then log in. So that's what I would recommend doing with that. And your next question, Philip, was can you control permissions as to who has access to the mailing list? That's another great question. Thank you for asking me to clarify that. So the users list is only available to those who are administrators right now. Within groups, you can have, let me go back to my menu, about us, actually. I didn't link to it yet. We'll go to, where did I put that now? Lent Resources Center. There we go. Showed up on the bottom of the list. So under members, group leaders could have access to email everybody in their group. So you can say email all, and it'll create this list for 2 people in this situation. So usually I have Outlook closed so I don't get distracted by my notifications, so it takes a little bit longer for me right now. But you can see here now it changes it to Lent Resource Center. So to directly answer your question, you can control the permission of the master mailing list area because that's only available to administrators. And then for subsets of that, you can do that within groups and allow the group's leaders to email those, the members of the group. So kind of got the best of both worlds where you limit access to everybody, but you give people access that they need. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, good. Thanks for responding. If you have any other questions, we've got another minute or 2 before I wrap up here. Please go ahead and put that in the chat. I do apologize for going so quickly. There's so much in Unite, and as you can tell, I really love this this website builder. You know, I've been with it since the beginning and have been able to hear our customers' feedback and see how we implement changes to it, and it's always growing and expanding. We've been doing a lot more on the back end recently. We've got some more exciting changes coming to the front end later on this year. So you can see that it's just a powerful tool that helps you communicate. So I hope that I was able to communicate the goal of today, which was to go through all of these different communication tactics. You know, some of them I spent more time on than others, but there's just a lot that you can do. And so by using these different tools, you have this comprehensive strategy of communicating the right information to the right people in the right manner. And depending on who they are, they may you may direct them to a different place, but it all provides the right information for them. So the 2 more questions that we have. Can you import material from an existing website? That's a really good question. There's not a direct import where you can't pick up your whole website and move it, but we do make it easy for you to copy the code from individual pages. So we'll go to our welcome page here. So we give you full access to the source material, and that's often the best way to do it. Page by page is to select the content you want and put it on your new page. The themes are unique, so you can't take like a WordPress theme and apply it here because there's so much more going on with within Unite with our different communication tools and our sync with our church management software. You can't merge those themes over, but you can put the copy really easily in that. The other thing I recommend is that if you're going through the process of moving to a new web platform, you probably probably want to reevaluate your website navigation, your page structure, view the analytics from your previous site to see what's most important to keep. I wouldn't recommend just a full pickup and move, because Unite has such a different kind of strategy behind it that you can do private versus public pages. You can really split up your information for your audience. It's better to just review that from a strategic perspective first. All right, and then is there ability in the future to also send text messages to members in addition to email? We've looked at a number of options. Most of them would be an increase in cost, and we've been trying to avoid that. There's a few other tools that have become so popular, like Remind, that's kind of decreased that in terms of our priority, but we're looking at other ways of integrating. So there's a few things in the works right now. I won't say that we're going to do a direct add text in just because of the costs associated with it. We're trying to find some qualified partners that would be less expensive before we do that. So definitely on the top of our minds. We don't have a good solution in place yet, but we are considering that for the future. So thank you for that. Is Unite 360 now my ISP, internet service provider? No, that's not it. It's your website provider. Your ISP is going to be something different, more like Charter or AT&T, whoever brings internet to your church. Unite is just simply your website platform. So it's not your mailing program either. You still would need a default email program, and we offer those services if you're interested in that. But what we find most churches already have their email provider set up. And then we can also work with you to get the domain. So if it's at pastor@mychurch.com and you want mychurch.com to be on your website, we can work with you to still use your same email client but get those domains set up. So that's a little bit more technical than I can go into great detail today, but we do have several different options there. And then what is the connection with Shepherd Staff mailing lists? Yes, the connection there, let me jump back here to close out of here and go to settings. The integration section to connect with Shepherd Staff, what you would do would you take this information from Unite, plug it into the sync tool in Shepherd Staff, and sync your member information. So your people, your households, that would all come over the contact information. And then from there, you can build mailing lists through those tools. And then you can keep that constant sync. It does require manual intervention because Shepherd Staff is not always connected to the internet. We can't push the information from Unite into Shepherd Staff, but you can pull it through the sync button in Shepherd Staff. And so if a member wants to update their phone number or their email address, they can do that in Unite. You pull that information into Shepherd Staff and approve it. That gives you that chance to review it so it doesn't automatically update your database. And so that would come in, and then Shepherd Staff is updated with Unite, and your mailing list would be in Unite. So the other thing that allows you to do is on the calendars, you could have anniversaries in there under a private calendar, but that's kind of secondary. Most importantly is to have that member directory on your website. All right. Well, I think that is all. Could you send a survey questionnaire to members? Last question that came in here before I wrap up. Certainly you can. We don't have a survey tool within Unite, but there's plenty of great ones. We use Survey Gizmo. Survey Monkey is another one that's out there. You can do a number of online forms. All you have to do is get that URL, and then you can plug it into that email. Or there's other things like forms where you might be able to embed the survey into your site. I've done that before. One of my favorite tools, it's not so much for surveys, but form submissions, is called Airtable. And they give you a custom code that you just copy it and embed it into your site. I'll show that right before I sign off here. When you are in a page here, you get a place where you can say, okay, I want to put this embedded thing here. I don't know what the code means, but I'll click this embed media, paste the code here, and click OK, and it'll paste it right into your site. So it makes it really easy to collect information from your members using a third-party tool, and there's a lot of them out there. I like Airtable because Airtable gives you that form, but gives you a ton of database tools so that you can use that information submitted in a variety of ways. But that's just one of those options. So, All right, well, thank you very much for being here. Let me put my contact information right up on the screen one last time. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or to anybody on my team. We'd love to speak with you with Unite, and not just from a sales perspective if you're looking to adopt it, but if you're already a user and you have ideas, you say, okay, Peter, how do I do this on Unite? You can send me an email, give me a call. I'd be happy to talk through that with you. Also, our support team is available, but I always love hearing from customers too, especially when it's talking about new ideas or, well, how do I figure out how to do that? I'd love to have those conversations with you. So thank you again for joining me, and have a great rest of the day. Bye for now.